The Ghost and Mrs Muir is a film I watched and enjoyed in my youth, and at that time I accepted it as a charming, pleasant romantic comedy. I viewed it again a few years ago, somewhat half-heartedly and interrupted by a variety of events and other distractions, but I enjoyed my nostalgic return to a happy memory from my youth and jotted down the following somewhat romantic notes. This is a film that presents a feminist-minded homage to spiritual love that can reach across the divide between physical and spiritual existence, across time and across social divisions. Daniel Craig and Lucy Muir appreciate and complement one another. She supplies pensive devotion and affection, while he, rather ironically, supplies life, dynamism and unguarded humour. He treats her with respect, but not with kid gloves or as a possession. They form a team in which a meeting of minds and an appreciation of nature and beauty is the essential trait rather than physical passion. Although Lucy concedes to physical and emotional temptation and has her heart broken, Greg knows that time is irrelevant and waits until she can join him in spiritual happiness, unburdened by mere physicality. However, recently and quite by chance, I came across an online article discussing the film, and it presented a quite different theory regarding the underlying themes of the film. I have to say I found the conclusions of the article quite unconvincing, but it was enough to make me want to view the film again and possibly review my thoughts about it. And I'm certainly glad I did, as I found a further and this time more attentive viewing more rewarding. Lucy Muir is a free-spirited, independent-minded young widow and mother who struggles with the somewhat restrictive mores in vogue at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th centuries. She rejects and defies the perceptions and societal norms applied to women of the period, is determined to maintain self-respect, and aspires to a sense of fulfilment, i.e. not conceding to others' views, plans and wishes, but leading a life on one's own terms. Having married when young and in her romantic days, she is now a thoughtful and resolute widow with a daughter. She is reasonably self-assertive and reveals a desire for independence and self-reliance quite regularly in her dealings with others. But she is equally frustrated in that, largely due to the fact she is a woman, she now feels badgered to be conformist and goaded into pleasing others rather than follow her instincts. In search of a new home, she views Gull Cottage, the former residence of the now-deceased Captain Daniel Craig, whose portrait dominates the main room and whose ghost is reported to haunt the building. Lucy is quite taken with the house, the portrait and the captain's presence, and is inspired to rent the property. She is also more personally inspired by the captain's spirit as she engages in conversation with his ghost, and, as they find one another intriguing and perhaps admirable, they come to a mutually acceptable agreement. She may live in the cottage, and she will write up the captain's memoirs under a pseudonym, an endeavour that will lead to success and financial independence for Lucy. In reality, I would say that Captain Daniel Craig is an alter ego who allows Lucy to live vicariously and is a conduit or cipher who enables Lucy to express herself and, more importantly, assert herself. She has adapted to the man's world around her and projects her innermost feelings and ambitions through the persona of Captain Craig. In a sense, this is a modified version of duality popular in the 19th and early 20th centuries. But here, rather than being torn between good and evil, Lucy is conflicted by acquiescence, as expected of her by society, and assertiveness, as she follows her natural instincts. Fundamentally, Greg's existence as a ghost is a tool in Lucy's quest to gain respect from others while at the same time achieving self-respect. Greg offers a channel for Lucy's feistiness and she admires and profits by his spirit, no pun intended, yet she also appreciates his willingness to reason with her and to compromise. Beneath his bluster, Greg listens to and respects Lucy, qualities he displays with no one else, while also offering her objective advice that reveals common sense and affection. Essentially then, Lucy projects onto Greg the qualities and traits she most admires in herself and which she aspires to see in and share with society. She is effectively externalizing inner thought as she reasons with herself and uses Greg as a sounding board and a means of expressing herself. Although she finds this exercise in spiritual self-respect rewarding, she recognises her physical and social needs and the validation of being loved and valued by another. And so she gently sets aside Greg, who takes on the mantle of the pained lover who sacrifices his spiritual love to physical and emotional need, in favour of romance and reality. Ultimately, however, she is disillusioned and dissatisfied by romantic love and in the end she is released from expectations, social restraints and conventions, and once again turns inward to Captain Greg for self-respect and fulfilment, not dependent on the views, actions and judgments of others. I have no doubt that holes will be found in my reading of the film, but I suspect they will be found in whichever interpretation you opt for, the literal one or the psychologically figurative one. I found this a touching, thought-provoking and entertaining piece with highly engaging performances which brings into focus and questions socially accepted injustices and inequitable attitudes toward women at the time, but does so playfully and with humour. It also accentuates the importance of self-respect and integrity in one's outlook and self-perception. It may also be worth mentioning that the author of the original novel published under a pseudonym whose initials, R.A., represented her sea captain father. My thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it of some value.